Hey everyone, Brian Zane here with my review of NXT 2.0 from November 30th, 2021. It's the final show before the War Games pay-per-view happening on Sunday. A lot to talk about with this episode, so let's get right to it. The show begins with the first of two ladder matches on the evening to see which War Games team will get the advantage in their match on Sunday. So we got the women's match first, Kaylee Ray versus Dakota Kai. The two teams brawl on stage before the match officially begins. We get a lot of Kevin Dunn style shaky cam. It's very nauseating. The match gets underway and these two are just going crazy from the get-go. Like at one point, Kaylee, the second move she does all match officially is a big planche out of the outside onto Dakota, and she also suplexes Dakota onto her stomach onto a ladder on the ground. Dakota with a big cutoff before the break though, with the big double stomp off the top and onto the apron as Kaylee is kind of upside down and everything. The match goes on, and near the end, Dakota seems to forget how briefcases and what they are and how you grab them, because she's like, oh, what is this? How do I think it was meant to come off as her being more hesitant and not forgetful, because she does stop what she's doing to do a big double stomp off the top of the ladder and hitting KLR. But that ends up costing her the match, because Kaylee Ray is able to pull her through the ladder, through the rungs of the ladder, and dump her back upside down on her head to allow her to climb up and grab the briefcase. So the face team gets the advantage at the women's War Games match, which is interesting to always see the faces get an advantage in that, because historically the story just tells better when the heels have the advantage all match. But anyway, be that as it may, the finish to me was just kind of weird because of Dakota's behavior on top of the ladder, but I think everything that led up to that before that was pretty good. GYV are up to some more mischief. They're trying to break into somebody's locker when Jacket Time loudly interrupt, and there's lots of loud shushing and lots of slapstick and everything before Briggs and Jensen finally show up, and then Gibson and Drake are spooked and they run away and everything. You know, I'm not hating it quite as much as I did before, this stuff with GYV. This segment got a little chuckle out of me, so you know what? There's that. Then we get a match with Cameron Grimes versus Andre Chase. It's a follow-up to what happened last week when Chase was kind of talking trash to Cameron backstage and Cameron told him to go to hell. I love that Andre has got a student section in the crowd for his matches. I know that they don't really do physical textbooks in college anymore, but I would love a bit where the students get all mad at Andre because he won't buy back their books. It's a short and sweet match. Cameron wins with the cave-in. Then afterward, Duke Hudson shows up on the villain's balcony, and he's brought some Photoshop with him, baby. Some different pictures of Cameron on the big screen, kind of a woolly style with the hair and the beard all kind of being warped in funny ways. Then finally, it's the Mr. Clean look, no hair, no beard at all, because that's what Duke Hudson really wants to do to Cameron on Sunday. And so Grimes responds, but is grabbing Andre Chase, who's still selling the outside. He brings him in the ring and he wants to shave his head, but then you got one of the students bailing Chase out, and then Grimes just says on the microphone he's going to shave Duke bald, and that's how the segment ends. I thought that was interesting, felt kind of a role reversal, because usually when you see bits like that, it's something that the babyface does to taunt the heel. Like I said, the kind of the Chris Jericho, that model that we'd seen so many years before. With this one though, it's I guess it was kind of I guess Duke was due to have some kind of more heat added, because Cameron got a lot of the one-upsmanship in the first part of this rivalry, and now it's Duke needs to get a couple of shots in as well. We get a vignette from a newcomer, Idris Inoffey, who says he's been living his whole life proving doubters wrong, and he's going to be doing more of that in NXT 2.0. He's taking on Solo Sakoa later in the night. Then we see Team NXT 2.0 in the ring for the War Games matchup. Now last week, I will admit, I was pretty dense in my lack of understanding as to why these particular foursomes were made for the men's War Games match. And I realize now it's supposed to be NXT, the 2.0, the new breed, essentially, versus the NXT originals with the black and yellow. But my point of contention is, does LA Knight really belong on that team? I don't know if he really counts as being an OG NXT person when he was just debuting maybe half a year ago. He's still in 2021 when he debuted. Not only that, I don't think that's enough of a reason, none of a justification for a War Games match right off the bat with these 8 guys. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. The whole point of this segment is Johnny Gargano has been voted in by the fans online to be in the men's ladder match later on. So who's going to be the one voted in for NXT 2.0? Before we get that, we've got Alicia Taylor, the ring announcer, actually doing in-ring interviewing with the group. I thought that was kind of a nice change of pace for her, a little twist there. So Carmelo Hayes speaks first and talks trash about Johnny Gargano. Then you have Grayson Waller. I love Grayson Waller's lower third, is it's just all his social media accounts listed there, just plain as day and everything. So he says, LA Knight, his time is over. He's an old man. The hot dogs and handshakes team is passé. He gets thrown off mid-promo by one of his stablemates just saying, yeah. He just gets interrupted like, what the fuck did you interrupt me for? Braun Breaker says, the black and gold team, they better not overlook them. He's going to come for the NXT Championship soon enough. And then Tony D'Angelo, he wants to fill some potholes, man. So Braun is voted into the ladder match, and after that announcement's made, Johnny Gargano shows up, and he tells all the young whippersnappers that if it wasn't for him and his teammates and people like them, they wouldn't have a ring to stand in at NXT 2.0. He calls Braun the big bad booty nephew. Again, there's that just hit you over the head with the Steiner references, but it was still hilarious. Probably the biggest high point of this entire segment, and dare I say one of the high points of the entire show. And then he tells Braun to, come to the ladder match alone without your stablemates, and he accepts, and that's that. It was a good way to just kind of build more of the tension and kind of show this group's mission statement against the NXT originals and whatnot. Then we get a backstage interview with Legado del Fantasma where they say that this time Von Wagner and Kyle O'Reilly will have no excuses when they lose to them later on. And then Elektra Lopez saying that after War Games, this group would be draped in gold. And then we see the latest episode in the misadventures of MSK in their search for the shaman. They seem to have finally reached their destination, or they're almost there, but there's a sassy GPS guiding them along. And he even calls Nash Carter a dipshit at one point. We're like, wow, like this must be that NXT like TV 14 more adult-oriented content I've been hearing so much about for this show. That took me by surprise for sure. So they get to their destination, more sass from the GPS. They get to the house and the door opens and you see a silhouette and trippy dramatic lighting, and that's where it ends, on that cliffhanger. So we're finally there. Who's it going to be? People still say it might be RVD. I mean, who could it possibly be at this point? Is it all red herring? Is it going to be somebody lame? Who really knows? But next week seems to be the time. We'll be finding the reveal either Sunday at War Games or next Wednesday, or next Tuesday, I should say. So fingers crossed it's somebody good. So up next, Wilde and Mendoza take on the team of Kyle Von Wagner, and the winning team will take on Imperium for the tag titles on Sunday. Zion Quinn showing up in a very sharp suit to stare down Santos Escobar across the way, and then they brawl their way out of the picture as the match goes on. Pretty solid match here, some good back and forth. I do think that Von Wagner is looking better every week I see him in the ring, but especially they're showing more of the story of more cohesion with he and Kyle paying off here. Like he thwarts a double team attempt from Legado del Fantasma, and then he and Kyle with a very good double team takedown of their own to win the match. So they're going to be taking on Imperium here. We hear from the champions after the match, and they basically say that they don't have a chance and everything. Then Kyle and Vaughn just like walk in on their interview and say that, there's one win away, these two misfits, one win away from beating you and becoming the champions. Vaughn calls them dumbasses. Brilliant. We get another Tiffany Stratton vignette where she says she's a princess and money is no object. Then it's time for the Joe Gacy All-Inclusive Invitational. He talks more about how the Cruiserweight Championship is in its very nature divisive and weight shaming, and so under Joe Gacy's rules, Cruiserweight Champion, there will be no height or weight requirements, and there will be no limit on which gender can compete for it. And we see that because he's standing next to three enhancement talent. One is a very short man, the other is a lady wrestler, and the other is a very large man. And so I guess the idea is he's going to wrestle all three of these people to show how inclusive he can be as a wrestler. He squashes the smaller guy, and he's about to start locking up with the girl when suddenly Diamond Mine show up, and Malcolm Bivens talking some trash to Joe here, saying that this is going to be the first and the last all-inclusive invitational in history after the Diamond Mine shut him up for good. So Joe basically calls Roderick Strong into the ring, and then he and Bivens go in the ring after him. Roddy says he's done talking. He goes to attack. Gacy ends up knocking him down, and then the fight's broken up after the Creed brothers and Harlan both kind of like interject on behalf of their respective guys. And that's where the segment ends. I thought it would have been funny to see Joe take on all three competitors, or go through like the smaller guy and the bigger guy before going to wrestle the girl, and then gets interrupted. It was an interesting segment. I was wondering in this, who is the heel in this scenario now? I don't know if there's a clear-cut way to separate that at the moment, because I think you can make a justification for either side being the bad guy or the good guy. What do you think? We hear from Solo Sakoa backstage in response to the Idris Inoffey vignette from earlier. He says, this is not Inglewood, this is not the military, this is the ring, and I'm going to show you why I'm the best, street fighter around, basically. Boa interrupts, walks in on his interview, and he looks to be in a lot of pain, having a hard time breathing, looks to be very uncomfortable, but Solo can't understand what he's saying because it's a different language, and he's just, whatever, I'm out of here. But like, man, can somebody go check on him? He looks to be, surely there's some medical team around to check on what's going on with Boa. Then we get that match of Sakoa taking on Inoffey, and during Sakoa's entrance, Beth Phoenix on commentary saying that he is the fastest rising NXT star yet. Like, based on what metric or sample size exactly? Inoffey, I should say, has got a flag that he carries to the ring that says the epitome of excellence. And as the match begins, you see Robert Stone with a stylist taking notes as the match goes on. It's actually pretty good. Neat little match between two young baby faces the fans don't really know a whole lot about yet, but they're young and they're full of energy and they're raring to go and make an impact in NXT 2.0. A lot of athleticism on display here. Solo hits a Samoan drop followed by the Uso splash to win. I'm pretty sure there's a law that requires that for all Samoan wrestlers to have that combo now. So anyway, after the match though, Boa shows up. He's undergone this transformation. He's got the face paint on. He's acting very aggressively toward both guys until he kind of sneaks away. And then Vic Joseph with a very interesting line, the unbalanced power oozing out of Boa. Who wrote that? But nevertheless, I thought the segment was interesting. Like I said, it did a good job getting these two, relatively fresh faces, especially for Idris, over with the crowd, and I think it was a good display. The whole Boa storyline, like I said last week, it's very intriguing to see what this transformation is and how they're going to incorporate what Mei Ying bestowed upon him. Backstage, Persia Parada and Indy Hartwell getting ready for their match when suddenly Indy's phone rings. Someone in their pajamas in the background is woken up by this, but they're wearing a sleep mask as well, so I can't tell who it is. But it's the hospital calling, and not only is Dexter Lumis still in the hospital for a broken hand 2 weeks later for some reason, he's also escaped. So there's a cliffhanger there. And then we see backstage Zion Quinn are outside the building. He's walking around the building, says the fight with he and Santos has just begun. Elektra Lopez says that she admires a man who marches to the beat of his own drum, but to have good luck against the match with Santos Escobar next week because he will need it. And then speaking of that women's match, we got Indy and Persia going against Yulisa Leon and Valentina Feroy. This was, a more story of mopey, distracted Indy being unable to wrestle here. The enhancement talent do get some offense in on her until Persia just gets tagged in and just lays waste to her opponents all by herself to wrap up the match and win with ease for her team. So I don't know if I dig this storyline because I feel that Indy already went through this whole lovesick thing when she was pining for Dexter when Johnny and Candice forbade her from dating him, and now she's in a whole it's basically the same kind of thing but a different mode of Dexter's hurt and now I can't concentrate. So how long are they going to keep that going, and how long is Persia Parada going to put up with this? There's a vignette for another newcomer named Draco Anthony. He's drinking coffee and says his actions will speak louder than his words. Interesting. And then we go to our main event. It's the men's advantage ladder match for War Games as Braun Breaker takes on Johnny Gargano. It's strength versus speed here. Gargano with some very creative, evasive maneuvers to get away from Braun's power here. Braun is a lot of fun to watch in this match because he is how I would envision if I made a creator wrestler who is just this big jack dude and maxed out all the stats and just had him bouncing around in the ladder match. And this is kind of what would result in that because he trucks into the ladder as Gargano's holding it up in place. He goes for an elbow drop at one point. He misses, and the way he takes the elbow onto the ladder, I should say, on his side and his hip, it looked just absolutely brutal. But then you have this moment here where he also picks up the ladder on his shoulders with Gargano laying on top of it. Looked very impressive as well. Also impressive is the crazy Frankensteiner Braun hits partway through the match as well. It ends when Braun is briefly knocked off the ladder, but he goes around anyway and just grabs Johnny, slams him down, goes back up the ladder, grabs the briefcase to win the match. So now NXT 2.0 will have the advantage at War Games. The show ends with all 8 guys, the 2 teams are there in the ring, and they all has fight as we fade to black. I think that main event kicked all kinds of ass, got really good by the end. For a match that wasn't even made official until partway through the show, and with no build behind it other than War Games advantage, no real heat besides that, I think it was still a very fun match to watch. And like I said, Braun was crazy in this thing. And I'll admit, the stuff they did with the brawl at the end of the show, that got me a little bit more hyped for their War Games match on Sunday. My grade for this week's NXT is a B-. Thought it was a pretty good go-home show before the pay-per-view on Sunday. One thing I really am liking about this version of NXT at this point in time is that when it comes especially to storylines and characters, nothing about that aspect feels boring to me. I like the fact you have your tentpole staple characters, the ones who are there almost every week, but you have your rotating cast of other characters kind of come in and out, all with their own unique set of characteristics. I feel like kind of in the earlier era of NXT, there was a lot of sameness with some characters. We do see some of that with some of the younger, fresher talent in here. They haven't quite gotten their uniqueness yet, but there is a little bit there still. And some of the unique stuff works and some of it doesn't at this point, but it's all feeling fresh right now. Nothing about 2.0 to me at this point feels very stagnant, so I do appreciate that. Now it's time for my predictions for the War Games pay-per-view happening this Sunday, beginning with the hair versus hair match, Cameron Grimes versus Duke Hudson. Like I said last week, I hate the fact that it's a hair versus hair match when Duke Hudson has so little hair to give in the first place. To me, it almost feels like a giveaway that he is going to, be the one to get shaved anyway. I mean, Cameron has already sacrificed so much getting his hair cut short. I can't imagine they're going to go the full length and have him be shaved bald and everything. After the year he's had, the up and downs, I can't imagine that. So I think that Duke Hudson, having less to lose here and could grow it back quicker, I think that he'll be the one getting shaved bald. Imperium defend the NXT tag titles against Kyle O'Reilly and Von Wagner, that pair of misfits, as Kyle referred to them themselves earlier in the show. This one is going to be a pretty interesting matchup. I'm curious to see how much further, the team of Kyle and Von will evolve. We've seen them grow and get better over the last several weeks, so will we see kind of the peak of that? I don't see them winning this one. I think Imperium are going to win by hook or by crook and retain, and I don't know if this is going to lead to some kind of breakup with Kyle and Von or what, but I don't know if this team has got legs enough to actually win the belts and carry a division or be on the top. I mean, I've been wrong about stuff like that before, but we'll see. A very unique Cruiserweight Championship match as Roderick Strong will defend the title against Joe Gacy, who does not fit the 205-pound weight limit, but that has been lifted for the purpose of this matchup. It's a very interesting kind of thing to think about Joe Gacy as this all-inclusive Cruiserweight champion, but I mean, I feel they almost gave away the whole gist of that gimmick in this all-inclusive invitational they had on the show tonight, because okay, you've kind of given away the joke, or kind of given away the crazy aspect of, oh, wouldn't it be funny if, in this one segment. So how much further can you really pull that if Joe is a champion? I mean, I think it'd be a great kind of interesting twist to have him win, but in my heart of hearts, I believe Strong's going to retain. In the women's War Games match, my prediction is that the Toxic Attraction and Dakota Kai are going to win that match. I believe that, the story or the upward path for Toxic Attraction is not done yet. Yes, they have all the gold. How much further can they peak? If they really want to put their stock into this group, you want to have a decisive group victory, not just the individual stuff they've been doing and getting the gold that way. So I believe also Dakota maybe getting a nice leg up over Raquel Gonzalez for a change would be nice. So I think it's time. So yeah, my pick for that one is going to be the Toxic Attraction and Dakota Kai. When it comes to the men's War Games match, I'm a little more torn up about who I could pick for the winner, because I think you can make a justification or an argument for either team winning, but they each come with their own pros and cons. And they're all kind of revolving around the same thing, because if NXT 2.0 wins, is it too much too soon for this inexperienced group? However, they still need to get over if that's kind of what this direction they're going to go with the 2.0 brand, hey, favoring the young and the new faces over the old guard and everything. Get out of here, you 36-year-olds. If I had to go with my gut here, I would say it's 2.0. They're the ones who are going to win this one to help kind of justify a Braun Breaker's renewed push for a championship run against Ciampa. Perhaps that would be my reasoning for it. There's a part of me that thinks that the originals are going to win and just kind of get them a feel-good thing here, but I just think that maybe the momentum is too much on 2.0's side, and they're going to pull out the victory here. But those are just my picks, folks. What do you think's going to happen on Sunday? Let me know in the comments section below, and I'll see you on the other side with my review of War Games on Sunday night or Monday morning at the absolute latest. But until then, folks, I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.